You're listening to
Sticky Note Conversations with Erica Washington. Way below acceptable. Way below acceptable.
On this week's episode,
how do I speak out to these things, knowing that has real implications for my team, for my own life, for my family, all the things. And that's not in a hypothetical. That is really what we are all seeing with the Trump administration.
Way below acceptable.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sticky Note Conversations. I am your host, Erica Washington, and I am super excited for you to join in on this conversation because it actually had already started and I just wasn't hitting record because, I don't know, some of this conversation may be too much for some people, but I really wanted to have just a unbiased and unabashed conversation with another executive director, someone else who was also doing this work and in this moment and has been for a very long time. And having somebody who can relate to the work that you do is key for you to be able to even keep doing it. And so when we think about the work that we're doing and the movement that we've been trying to build and this moment that we're in, one of the first things I think about is my friend, Alicia. And so I want to introduce Alicia. I'm going to give you a little bit of her bio, but then we're just going to dive right into, I think, a really good conversation. So I'm really excited. But Alicia Contreras, alas, serves as the founding executive director of RAIZ Arizona. And I always say it wrong. I was telling her I'd say it sounds like cortisone, but it's cortisone. And I know how to roll my R's too, which is a community of diverse faith traditions, belief schools, and individuals organizing for an Arizona where all people belong and live with abundance and dignity. Alicia found her passion serving her community and practicing her ministry of social justice while fasting with Maricopa County citizens for safety and accountability in 2009. In 2010, the diverse and hateful SB 1070 legislation set her on her path of faithful liberation. Alicia knows the power of organizing and believes all people have a right to live with abundance and dignity. And that is abundance with a capital A and dignity with a capital D. And so I am in total agreement with that. And so I'd like to welcome Alicia to Sticky Note Conversations. Thank you for joining me, darling.
Hi, Erica. Thank you so much for having me. And yes, you can roll your R's.
I can roll my R's. So it takes some practice sometimes. My Spanish is awful, but every day I feel like I've learned a new word, but they're usually words that I can't actually say on the podcast, at least not on the radio version. Look, I like to learn all of the profanity in all of the language first. And that's how I'm going to immerse myself into the culture. Because if I can cuss you out in 7 different languages, then I'm on my way.
Or understand if someone's cussing you out before.
Oh, very much so. Right. I want to know if you calling me a punta or something. So, anywho, Alicia, thank you for being here. Mm-hmm. And thank you for being here right at this very moment because you just came back from your sabbatical. You just came back from whale watching and frolicking with nature and being one with the world and being able to turn off some of the nonsense that is happening right here all around us. And so for you to come back and then let's talk about it. Let's talk about the nonsense. Let's talk about what we're supposed to be doing. I don't know if that was either going to be jarring, no, I'm not ready. I don't want to talk about anything. You just want to live with your land of butterflies and, bluebirds and frolicking through the meadows. Or if you came back and you're ready to roar and fight or what have you. So how was sabbatical? How was that?
Yes. Well, first off, I do appreciate you saying sabbatical, but I want to reframe it as a residency or respite because Lord knows I need respite and I will need a sabbatical still. So for my board members listening, I do need
okay. Yes. So let me X that out. It's not a sabbatical. This was a respite. This was a pause. It was a pause with a moment to think about stuff?
Myself, yeah. So, well, actually, Erica, you and some other leaders who support me and the work and have been alongside, this April is my 18th year in this work, whether it
Holy crap.
be, yeah, I'm like, ooh,
You look 19, so
thank you, thank you, thank you. So 18 years, and the thinking about rest or respite or just like the ability to pause has not been a thing. So through a lot of pushing, from other coaches, friends, executives, leaders in the movement, specifically Esteban Garces, who's a good friend, and he's also a senior advisor with Corazon. And then even you even helped support me in this process, remember? Um, the WinCall Institute accepted me into the WinCall residency. So for over 35 years, they've been really supporting movement organizers, leaders, executives to find rest, reflection, and reconnection with our purpose. And, I was invited to apply 10 years ago. And I was like, oh, no, not yet. 6 years ago, no, I'm too busy. I have stuff to do. And then finally, 2 years ago, I applied, and I put off going last year because of the election. And so my body really said, you need to stop that shit. You need to really go. And so I'm so grateful to the folks at WinCall, the residency, the caregivers, the support, and even my new cohort of folks that I was able to enter in to be there. And so I had the ability to spend the last 3 weeks in the Olympic Peninsula in Washington, in a very remote area where my schedule wasn't packed. People weren't demanding things, or I wasn't telling myself that people demanding things of myself right now in this moment, to rest, reflect, and, whether that was sleeping, walking, journaling, prayer, art, you name it, I was able to do it. And the folks at WinCall have really cultivated this space to sustain the movement, right? To sustain folks like you and me. Because the truth is that when we're off, even we're on vacation, we're on a long weekend, we have a couple days to ourselves, we're always on. And the ability to unwind and really balance your nervous system is a necessary need, whether we want to believe it or not. And I am a recovering workaholic. Don't get me wrong, like I didn't go on this 3 weeks and now I'm perfect. Like, oh, here we go.
so you're a whole changed lady now. Okay.
Yeah, woo. No, none of that. But being kind of forced, and it's uncomfortable. I'm gonna be honest, like it's uncomfortable to say, I'm not gonna be eating crap, I'm not gonna binge eat, I'm not gonna go down the rabbit hole of social media or news. I don't have any kids, but I am a strong woman, female in my family. And so I want to be supportive to my family. And so I didn't really realize like all of the needs and requirements of that. And I don't say that with any ill feelings, but, being present. And then also as a married person or in a partnership, right? That's a whole nother level. And then as an ED. And it's kind of scary sometimes, right? To be alone with your thoughts, Like, what are we going to do?
Why was it so hard? Why do you think it was so hard to finally say yes to going?
It feels like something is always on fire. And for the long time, I was brought up in a culture of, you want to be like the first one in and the first one out and work hard and be present. And what does it look like to be in solidarity and allyship? And also as a woman ED and as I'm not super young. I guess I am starting to become one of the elders, right? And what does that look like to show up? Oh, well, she's off. What is the stories I make up in my mind if people are thinking when folks are off or if they're not present? And I think a little bit of it was imposter syndrome. Like, no, I have to be seen. I have to be heard. I have to be here. But my body just really put me into check with that, right? It was not well. I'm still on a journey for that, whatever that mental, physical, spiritual health. And this work will require that. And we've seen that, Erica. You know, so many other EDs, other leaders have been ill, have passed away, especially women, Black women leadership, as well, especially from illness. And that's due to just the high energy of stress that's staying in our body, right? I think that's what it was. Just seeing all the writings on the wall. But yeah, in Arizona, ground zero for a lot of bad shit, you know, especially as it relates to immigration. You know, that's a part of my story of brought me into the work, and it's still the realities. You know, we have been forged by the fires over the years, and I think that the folks here on the ground are doing such amazing jobs and working with each other, and really also trying to respond to, quite frankly, like an administration and a moment that we just don't know the answers to. Anybody who says that they know the answers or they know the plans, they don't know. Or if they do know, like, please share. You know,
Yeah.
please share.
I mean, there are emergency meetings happening to talk about all of the different executive orders that are coming down over the past few months and specifically now. And, you know, I think about what you said about turning things off and not being able to turn it off because this is life, right? Our jobs are about what's happening in the here and now, you know, to ourselves and then the community. And, you know, when the door opens to get into this work, for a lot of folks, it's you have an opportunity to advocate for something that's really important to you. That's usually what they ask you, like, what matters to you? You know, what ties you to this work? And that's a great thing, right? Because you need to have some skin in the game. You have to have your footing in it. But also, on the other hand, because you have so much skin in the game, there's no room for you to tag out for a while. And if you do, there's a lot of guilt around that. And there's guilt that I think we give ourselves, but then there's also how other folks look at us. And as you were talking, I was thinking about how oxymoronic it is that one of the things that we've both fought for a number of years is paid leave and paid sick days.
Mm-hmm.
And I firmly believe that everyone just has a right to rest, but we're not resting in this fight to rest because
Mm-mm.
it feels so important that there are so many people who don't even have the privileges that we do. So then I don't feel like I have the room and the space to do that. But also, there's always another fire to put out. And it's not even so much that I feel like I'm so important that I have to be the one to do it because I don't. But
Mm-mm.
also, it feels scary if you're not there because you also know that it just, you could let folks down. And it's
Mm-mm.
very easy. Something you said right before I hit record about things being all on us. So if something bad happens, it's all our fault. And if something good happens, everybody helped do it. And so, you know, I'm really sitting with that and what that looks like. And I did advocate for you to go on this reprieve and spend this time. And yet I haven't done it yet myself.
And you need to. I think that that's a thing. Is like we were talking about this for you, Erica, and you're already talking about like how you can plan on like what you're going to do and what's to have time to vision, and that's work, right? That's not rest and respite. Like, yes, you can reflect like what is your purpose and what is it, how you want to show up and how you want to live. But don't go out and write your next 5 year plan on a respite because that's not respite. That's work. And the reality is that, you know, you said it as well, is like you were letting people down. And I know that I've seen how hard you've worked and how you show up. I've had the privilege to be in the sharing space with you since the first Trump administration. Holy shit, here we are. I remember that first meeting in Nevada, and people were just like melting in their chairs after executive order from the first round of this fool. And I've seen you, you know, be a powerful leader, open up space, do the things, be visionary. And yet, you're right. Where's the rest for you? I can name the number of members of your team and my team who have taken time off, which we advocate for. And I can
Because we want
only,
them to. I
we
believe they
want
should.
to. But I think the only time that you and I have taken off is when we're in the hospital and our bodies have told us to take off.
That's true. Because your body will tell you to sit the heck down. And my body has told me on multiple occasions to just go ahead and sit all the way to the F down. And I had to, and so I don't want to get to that point again. And although those things weren't necessarily related, but they were at the same time because
Mm-hmm.
everything is related, how we hold stress and how we're treating ourselves. And I consider myself a decently healthy person, and I try to eat well and I try to work out. I try to do all these things, but there still has to be rest and has to be quiet time and all of that. So no,
Mm-hmm.
I hear you. I do hear you. Like, it's hard still because, that felt like shots fired talking about I can't write my 5-year plan while I'm resting, because that feels like a rest to me. It feels like I'm going to be able to, I want the rest so that I can find the brilliance, I guess. That's what I want. I want the quiet and the space to not have meetings and
Mm-hmm.
not to have, Zoom after Zoom after Zoom and all of these administrative things to do. But I want to sit still and dream about the world I want to live in, because this work is personal to me and it's the legacy that I leave for my community and my kids. And I feel like I'm energized from that. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not, that doesn't feel like work. And I think that's also the part, like, it doesn't always feel like work. Some stuff do. Like, don't get me wrong, some stuff feels like heavy labor. But at the same time, it's a beautiful thing to be able to plan out an event and then kick it off and be able to do it and inspire some people to be like, I didn't know that this was a thing and I didn't know that I could fight for this, and to inspire them. I love it. I do.
And yes, and you do an amazing job at that. And we need more of that creativity that you have been bringing to the space for such a long time. And we also need you to have a full stop rest. Full stop rest. So I'm here full support to like support you on that, to have
Fine, fine,
respite
fine. I
stop,
am going to have a respite, and then we're going to have a sabbatical, and then
sabbatical.
we will sabbatical together. We will find somewhere to sabbat.
Yes, yes,
So
we'll
we shall do
sabbat.
that. So let me ask you a question. You talked about a little bit about Arizona. Like, what is the landscape of Arizona right now? What's going on down there?
I mean, so much. And mind you, like I'm coming off of 3 weeks, so there's probably a lot that has changed. Even in 3 weeks, things change on a dime here, everywhere. Well, I can say that the folks here, immigration is always like a number one scenario, as like being so close to the border and having a legislature, largely of our GOP folks, that are following suit with the administration. And this is a need for, folks are working collectively to really try to combat this, to make sure that the community is aware of what's happening. There are rapid response systems in place for folks to identify when ICE or folks are around in the streets. And I'll just say, right before I left, and it is a little bit of the guilt, right? Like, I'm not fully in the know. Like, this is my first couple days back. And so I'm catching up with my team, catching up with the folks. The fear and readiness for ICE raids is just really real. And then just it's escalated even more with folks being kidnapped and abducted, human trafficked by this administration, right? Without due process. And I think the fact that that's happening, and the fact that it's also happening to folks and whatever their stance is on Gaza, that's like a whole thing that people are navigating. And I share that with you, even with a sentiment of a little bit of fear too, right? How do I speak out to these things, knowing that has real implications for my team, for my own life, for my family, all the things. And that's not in a hypothetical. That is really what we are all seeing with the Trump administration. So I'll just say, like, there's prepness there. There are faithful folks that are coming together also, that are, trying to figure out, like, how do we help one another? How do we be with one another? There's been a lot of good organizing and relationship building. And I just want to say, like, folks talk about mobilization and actions now, like in the houses of worship settings and in organizing the way that we're trying to be with folks is just is relationship, and that may appear slower than others, right? So that's happening. That's what needs to happen. And I'll know that my folks and my team and the people we're in community with have been really just trying to prep themselves to make sure folks have their house in order, so that if ICE comes to your door, comes to your house of worship, that you know what to do. And as scary as it is, it's really practicing it. And I hate to say it, like an active shooter, right? Who is prepared for what? How do you communicate who's on first type of scenario? And I remember, like, I grew up in Southern California and we had earthquake drills that we practiced often. And I feel for the kids now because they practice active shooters, like what to do. And it's the same scenario. And there's a real calling into white allied faithful to figure out how they can put their bodies out in the front right now. Not because Black, Brown, Indigenous folks can't and aren't ability to, but the level of assessment of risk, especially for the smaller like houses of worship, the smaller traditions, like it's real. Like they may not have the abilities to have some type of security, and that's also like a touchy subject. Like folks feel differently with having security guards or police officers, etc. There's a real reckoning that needs to happen when we think about keeping folks safe. So everybody's trying to navigate those things. I will say that there's folks that show up to the legislature trying to figure it out and work. Some of our partners are really trying to continue to work to make sure that our budget isn't getting gutted and that the people will have the things that they need. And it is going to be an uphill battle each and every day. And each and every day, the visibility of that has drastically changed, at least from my vantage point. Like it cannot be business as usual, rah, like let's be there out in the streets the same way based on level of assumed risk for people. Like everyone needs to be in choice. Like we're always on choice, but like we need to really be in choice about like what does it mean to show up?
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because being brown or being perceived as an immigrant, you don't even have to be one. You could be third, fourth generation, American, using quotation marks because, Indigenous folks were here before America was called America. But it's to the point where it seems like they have threatened to deport citizens. So when you think about who can put their bodies on the line, who can show up in that way, like I don't know what that looks like, right? Because when you think about we all have to be in this together, because no one's free until everyone is free. But also thinking about, well, dang, I got these kids, or my kid might be sick, and then they need to be here because they have to go to this hospital or see this doctor, and I have to have this job because I'm the one taking care of so many people in my family. And so if I go out there, then I might lose my job, because every job doesn't allow folks to even like protest that way or show up, out in the streets. And so there's so many different facets, or people who may want to do something but feel like they can't physically be in the street for whatever reason. What do you think that they should try to do to still be a part of this movement and help how they can?
And that's so true, Erica. I think that we're doing the same thing. I'll say we're navigating those things differently here in the state. I'm navigating those exact things differently.
Yeah, because we could lose funding for saying the wrong thing to the wrong person.
Exactly. And so like that's a whole conversation that even before this administration took office, I started trying to figure out like, what do we do? How do we do this? Being really honest with the funders that, I know this isn't the question, but I'll just share this part and go back. Because being honest with the funders to say, hey, our work will show up differently. It doesn't mean that because it's not online and because my logo isn't out there for X, Y, and Z, doesn't mean that the work isn't happening and the relationships and the networks aren't happening. It just has to look differently. And so I think this is a real opportunity, and we talk about it for the folks that are trying to navigate that same, like if they're the main breadwinner, if they are caring for others, if they are having different levels of risk, evaluate that self first. And like anything, what are the steps that you can do to put yourself in a better space if something is going to happen, right? If so that you can be out there and vocal. That's like the first thing, right? Do you have a phone tree, right? Do you have an emergency contact list if something happens to your kids or you or X, Y, or Z, or heaven's sakes, your job? Do you know your neighbors? Do you like that's a real thing that even through the pandemic and however people are just engaging with people, folks don't like to pick up the phone anymore. They're like, "Ooh, why are you calling me?" Right? Do you know them? Is there some type of rapport with them so that if something happens, you have someone who's in close proximity? So like if you're going to be in an encampment, like who are your people and do you have the supplies, right? And I'm not speaking about it in like conspiracy theory or scariness. It's just like, yeah, you just want to be readiness because that's whatever readiness looks like, disaster relief. So that's the first part. Second is you have the most influence on the people closest to you. So having these conversations and not feeling like you have to put it out online and get in an argument with someone online or, just so much anger towards people, but have those real conversations because that is going to be more powerful from my vantage point to sit down and have a conversation with someone in a safe setting, as long as you feel safe with them about things. And so I've been sitting with that because I have an old girlfriend, right? She's a good friend. And I know that she voted for Trump. I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know. And I know that she was really excited. I saw like the red wave, all that shit. And while I don't agree with her, I didn't say anything. I'm just like, ugh, I'm just going to leave it be.
Mm.
And I just been sitting with myself, like, do I have the conversation to say, like, do you understand why I'm not well? Do you understand that XYZ, ABC, whatever is impacting me? And like, while you love and support me as a friend and as a person who is like visibly brown, who is second generation, who is married to an immigrant, who does this work, and friends, like whether they are blood relatives or community chosen relatives, are being impacted for all of the things, whether it's who they love or where they're born. Like, I've been sitting with myself, like, how do I have this conversation in a non-confrontational way? Because I do hope to like be in relationship, but at the same time, my mom was like, just let it go. Just let it go because it's not for you. But that's just the hard part. And I don't know the answer. That's the real thing. So like evaluating, are we going to have those conversations or not? Right?
There are conversations where, especially online conversations, where just don't get baited. Like some
Mm-hmm.
things people are just saying things because they don't have nothing else better to do, right? Whether they care about it or not, they just find something to like poke at and push buttons. But in the situation that you're talking about with someone that you consider a friend, like to me, that's difficult because I will say I don't know that I know anybody that I consider a really good friend that voted that way. Not somebody I consider a friend, like somebody
Mm-hmm.
associate, somebody I might know, might be a Facebook friend. Sure. Maybe I've insulated myself to folks who hopefully not so much that everyone has to think alike, because I don't agree that everyone has to think alike,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to see the humanity, right? Because, and I've said it in past episodes, that our vote is not just for us. That whole one voice, one vote, that your vote is personal. Your vote is not personal. Your
Mm-hmm.
vote is a community action. How
Mm-hmm.
you vote and how people show up, how and who shows up as the elected official represents all of these folks. And they have to have good morals and values, and they have to understand the bigger picture. And everyone's issues aren't all going to be helped at the same time. But if we're actually working towards humanity and seeing everyone's humanity, and understanding that all of the problems that we have are man-made, number one, and number two, that they run deeper than just what you see. It's just not, crime isn't just crime because of
Mm-mm.
immigrants or because of Black kids or gangster rap music or whatever.
Poor
Right.
parenting,
Right.
crap.
And it's not, and it goes into poverty, but it's not even just that someone's poor, that someone steals, but go, take it back. Let's take it all the way back into the root of the problem of how we got to that. And I'm always boggled how people can't connect these dots sometimes. But I say all that to say is, like, to have that conversation with this person, to me, sounds like a conversation about do you see me as a whole person? And do you care about my safety? And do you care about the safety of my family members? And do you care if someone were to drag us off the street? Because I think some people didn't necessarily think it was going to be what it was going to be. And I don't know why, but I wonder, especially in a place like Arizona, where I feel like immigrants are not the minority, the way people like
Mm-mm.
to make it seem like minorities. There are more Latinx folks or Latinos or Mexican immigrants and other immigrants there than probably a lot of other places. And
Yeah.
so they're helping run the economy. But
Yeah.
you thought what? I don't know. Mm,
No, you're right. And I say friend as like I'm a person, like if I'm in a relationship with you, I want to keep you for like all my life. And that's my own trait that I need to work on, right? That's a real thing. This is a childhood friend. But I do
they
part of
know. That's not in the work well. Like, I mean, some things obviously they run their course, but that's a positive
I
trait to
know.
have.
But I think the reason I want to bring that up is because I know that I'm not the only one that has, especially, the work that I do, while I love it and it is my ministry, I do believe that these conversations are even more powerful in a space where someone shares a tradition or can relate to you on a theological perspective. In theory, right? In theory, they're relating to you. Well, I'll just speak to this one more thing. It's just that I do believe that this person wants good things for me and wants the best things for me, and that we're in echo chambers and they're only hearing something else from others that might have a stronger pull. This reality of like when we go into the ballot box, like that we're bringing others in there with us, that we're thinking about the all. I don't believe that's true. Like, I believe that if I sat down with this person, I would able to say like A, B, and C, this is how I'm being impacted. I did have to tell them to give me some space because I was struggling, because I didn't want to blow up on them, because I do value their opinion. And I think that this moment, it can go two ways. It can be a really powerful come to Jesus moment, like conversation, essentially, right? Or it could just turn it off. And then there's another MAGA person that just was like, ugh, F that XYZ. But I do have faith in humanity, and I have hope, and I have faith. And so that's why I'm reckoning with it. But I also want to make sure that I do it in a way that I'm safe and that I feel okay and like strong enough to have that conversation. And I think people can navigate that because there's just so much happening.
You
And
think
I'll
that should
just
be in person, or do you think that should be on the phone?
I do think it needs to be in person because people can just turn off so much, people can turn off so much on the phone. Or I definitely it needs to be in an intimate space because we do have a long standing, I'm talking like 20 plus years that this person has done life with me. Not always like closest, like friendships and relationships change, but I would say, like, if they needed something, I would still come, even though all this is happening. And so that's why I think that this is something that people can do when they are evaluating risk, if they need educating themselves, opening it. And it feels kind of corny sometimes to others. And I don't know where folks are listening, they are on their faith, their spirituality, etc. But like this real understanding of belonging and being in relationship with people. And when we talk about abundance and dignity for folks, these aren't just like talking points. This is like a realities of how folks are being, and like a true understanding of, from my vantage point, my faith. And it's also really hard right now. I am also really heartbroken. We were talking about it earlier. Two of my good friends, Ray and Liz, were talking about like, oh Lord, please, please pray for the Pope. Like, please keep him steady and healthy and safe. We need him in this moment. And then I come back from WinCall. I'm home for less than 24 hours and he passes away. And while I do not know this, like I never had the moment to like sit and be with Pope Francis. I love and appreciate him, and he has kept me in my faith as a Catholic woman because of the way I felt seen, and that he was living the gospel in his papacy. And I know that that's not like a perfect thing for everybody, and I just want people are like, oh, he didn't do enough, and progressives, oh, he didn't do enough, and conservatives, so he did too much. Like, he's not here for progressive or conservativeness. He's here for the work of Jesus, right? and what the gospel is asking. And so right now people are heartbroken, like Catholics and non-Catholics along are like just seeing the way that he walked with the people, the way he is with the people, and like what does that mean to our moral compass in this moment. There's a lot on the line right now. These 180, I don't know, I switched it to the Pope, but like it has as kind of a trajectory of like where we're going, right? The cardinals are going to move, and how their vote comes down will impact a global religion,
Now, is that a democracy, the cardinals? Because for folks who may not, know how that works, they vote for a new pope, right?
They
And so,
do.
so who gets to vote
So the cardinals under 80, so you have to be under the age of 80.
to
They get
vote? So
to
if you're
vote.
85, you're too old to vote?
You're
Oh,
too
that's
old to
something.
vote. You had your time, I guess.
So only cardinals.
Only cardinals.
And they're all men?
They are all men. They are all men. In the Catholic Church, Pope Francis did open a lot for spaciousness for women, but the
Still a long way to
elevating,
go.
we still a long way to go, right? Um, but so they're gonna vote. So he's gonna right now we're in the 9 days of prayer since his pass and mourning, and then folks are gonna come. His funeral is gonna be actually Saturday in Rome, Vatican. I was actually going to ask you, like, well, let me look for a ticket and go bunk with your daughter. That is not the thing, right? But I say that to say, like, all joking across, like 2/3 have to vote. Let me get the numbers. I believe it's like 136. I'll get that numbers to get back to you, but they're going to have to vote. And the reason I'm saying this is like it's a democracy, and so we'll lay out where the church is going to continue to go, whether it is like in this space of calling more folks in, inviting all those from the margins, or if it returns to like a more conservative space. And that sets and arms, unfortunately, folks that tries to weaponize Christianity, right? Religion in order of hurting our democracy, right? And hurting the marginalized, whether it is LGBTQIA communities, right? Immigrant communities, migrant communities, women, the poor, etc., right? And so this is going to set a tone, and only time will tell. And I speak to that because as someone who works not only with Catholics, Pope Francis worked very deeply across traditions. And he didn't care if you're a believer or not. He just wanted to be in relationship to you and remind you that you are seen to be with dignity, that you are welcomed, that you are loved, that you belong. And I think that's what people really need. And that's why so many people are feeling a great loss for Pope Francis, from the clothes that he chose to wear to the
Even
way
his
he lived his.
burial,
Yeah.
because I've heard that, he wants a very simple burial and he's not going to be buried where the rest of the popes have been buried. And I will
Yeah.
say that I am not Catholic and I actually don't subscribe to any particular religion
Mm-hmm.
because I do struggle with organized religion for a lot of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But I did go to Catholic school for a number of years. And so I know my
Mm-hmm.
Hail Marys and all of that as well as I can roll my R's. But also, I've also been to the Vatican. And so,
Wow.
and got to tour the Vatican. And Vatican City is just it's a space that you can't quite describe. And the Vatican itself is like all of this space that you just don't know what to do with because you're like, wow, look at all this stuff. But also, there's a lot of money there. There's like
Yes.
it's overwhelming the amount of gold and things, and it made me think about a lot of different things. But I want to ask you specifically when we in this talking about religion that a lot of times right now, religion, Christianity is in the same bucket as the alt-right. And
Mm-hmm.
it's almost as though it can feel like they have taken what religion is. And like, if you have values and morals and family values, all of different things that, you're over here. And then you have progressive folks and progressive folks are not, having these same values. How do you see religion in your work? I know it's like it's a faith-based organization. How does religion show up in the everyday and how you organize folks or and how you move people and how you talk about policy because there's supposed to be a separation of church and state too. So how does that work as you are
Mm-hmm.
talking about paid sick days and immigration, but also in through this lens of faith and religion?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I want to just share is it's like it's an interfaith space that doesn't shy away from faith, not essentially from religion, right? We are not here evangelizing people, right? That's not who we are. We do, like myself as a Catholic woman, as a Jesuit who has my own struggles within my own tradition. It does lean in that space because there's a lot of like where we are, who people are either culturally or some way or another in the Christian diaspora of folks, right? But I'll say that this is that it is so heartbreaking and disheartening that folks have weaponized Christianity specifically and are building a movement of white supremacy and erasure of empathy, especially like in some evangelical spaces, right? That is something that is happening and the othering. So that's why the work that we do at Corazon is so needed, and not just us. That's why we're in relationship with so many different traditions to create spaces and circles of belonging, of relationship, of getting to know, who's your neighbor and taking away the othering aspects of like, if you practice a specific tradition and you never had an opportunity to go to a masjid or to go to a temple or to go to a sweat, or if you've never been to a church, like, then you may have been told a lot of, falsities about the others and the way they practice that. And so when you create areas of opportunity for those folks to be in relationship as human beings first, and then share in on like, oh, from their tradition they can speak about, you know what, you do need time to care for yourself, you do need time to care for your children if you have children, or your partner, or your neighbor, etc. And like, what does that look like? What does care look like? And how do we engage around immigration, migration, etc.? That is a whole thing. How do we allow people to vote? All of these things, right? And when you're being able to be in a relationship, that is where we're able to really see the magic happen with folks. And I'll say, like, we have an internship and a fellowship where we bring specifically women of faith from different traditions to do exactly that. And so women are able to experience different traditions, visit space, have conversations, and they see each other more as one another than they ever have. Like Muslim women talking to Catholic women or evangelical women or Jewish women, which has been difficult. Like realistically, it has been challenging over the last since October of 2023, right? That tension is where the organizing and the relationship and where their faith lies, right? Being able to sit in tension in a safe space, where there's rules that, people are going to be safe, people are not going to attack them. And that is where we're able to show up. And so we do this by calling folks in to offer a prayer, offer a meditation, offer a good word, inviting folks to acknowledge their fear, but lean into their faith, because their faith is where hope can come from, where joy can come from. Inviting folks to challenge things that they're hearing, where they can't just turn away, and actually helping folks move from a sense of charity and where they might feel comfort about feeding. They might feel really comfortable about feeding the needy, right? And that's what it's meant to do. But then, like, let's actually have a conversation about why so many people are needy, why so many people are hungry, and what does that look like in policy, and how does it show up in policy, and how does your faith and the theologies of your faith and the teachings of your faith and the sacred texts of your faith actually require you to speak about that policy. I think that is how it shows up. And so this isn't about keeping church and state apart. It's just actually inviting people to, you told us who you are. You shared out who your tradition is, who your highest power is, and what those teachings are. Well, okay, then is this policy living up to the standard of what your higher power requires of you or wants for you? And so when you take that all away, it's really such a powerful space to meet people where they are. And when you can do that and invite people who are maybe atheists or who may be just like, you know what, there's no tradition at all, but they can still see the dignity in others and the humanity of others, that creates a real sense of organizing and opportunity, right? And it's not perfect. It's hard work. It's slow work. And we're imperfect people. I'm imperfect at this work and I'm learning. But being able to be willing to not say, I'm just going to run away from this is what's needed in this moment, at least, because Lord knows, like, we have never been in a moment that we are in right now. And we cannot do this alone. This is really a need for us to go deep, to gain relationships, to be in allyship, and understanding that politics is not solidarity and that your tradition isn't your solidarity either. So, like, are you going to actually be the hands and feet of whoever your power is, and understand that you're going to make mistakes, but you're still going to find a welcoming? And so we try to, at Corazon, at least try to provide a space where people can feel welcome, where people can feel like they belong and come as you are. So that means if you have to bring your kids, you know, just however you need to show up. Like, don't apologize if you're on a Zoom meeting and your cat or dog is like going haywire in the back, or, you know, we try to like remove the barriers. And so that's really why we have language equity, we have care equity, transportation equity, because we know there's so many barriers that people are experiencing. So let's create a space where they can be in a relationship and they can feel heard, they can feel like they belong and that they're safe.
Is that what the mission of Corazon is?
Yeah, it's like building a relationship with people where they can participate, like centering Black, Brown, Indigenous people of faith towards immigrant justice, for care equity, for our democracy, and for healing justice. Because I think this is another piece that we need to be aware that the toll of the realities and what the world is requiring, or some in the world are making the world hard for us. It cannot go untended. Like, the amount of support people need, whether it's physical, mental, spiritual health, you know, like, we are not the psychologists and therapists, but we can put people into relationships. We can teach, we can hold healing circles. We can connect folks so they can get the support they need, because it is like this wellness component of our work, of our lives, is so needed.
You're listening to
Sticky Note Conversations with Erica Washington.
Hi, my name is Aaron Ford.
Hi, my name is Nina Nova.
Hi, I'm Lori Lee.
And you're listening to
Sticky Note Conversations
with Erica Washington.
Hey, y'all, I'm Erica Washington.
And so what happened was we were not clear enough that when that Brown versus Board of Education decision was enacted, yeah, we'll let your kids come to school. But you know what we did not do was peel back the layers of all of those things.
When Black people win, when that win trickles all the way down to Black folks, everybody gets a piece of that pie.
I am so shocked by the system. And why aren't you like screaming like your hair is on fire?
The clarity was, I'm running for governor. The trepidation was, oh boy, I'm running for governor.
Think about it. If our founding documents all say that we're a more perfect union, that we are always striving towards a more perfect union, then we should do that.
The Sticky Notes is for anyone who enjoys a good conversation.
Sticky Note Conversations with Erica Washington.
Who are the people that you organize? Are they mostly young folks, or are they older folks? Are they mostly immigrants or citizens? Who shows up for your folks?
It's a very diverse network of folks, and it's always growing, right? So at the core of it, it is an immigrant community, very much at times monolingual Spanish speakers. And over the years, we've seen, because we are in relationship people, we've seen that expand. And so we do have folks that are white allies, monolingual English speaking folks. We have Muslim community members, Jewish community members. And it is intergenerational. We do tend to lean on the ages on the sides of our elders, right? You know, there's a lot of silver hair in the spaces at times, but there's always a need and learning to want to be in relationship with the younger folks. And I think that my organizers are doing a good job to actually have them heard as well, because if we're not the religious group, right? But if we're only relying on religious communities, unfortunately, people are doing more funerals than they're doing like baptisms, right? And so expanding that to, as we think about our college age students, is really where folks are. But then we also have a lot of babies because we have a lot of mamas. We have a lot of caregivers. We have a lot of matriarchs in the work. And so sometimes that's the kids of their grandchildren. Sometimes that's their kids. Sometimes that's their nieces or nephews. Yeah. So definitely a diverse group.
Is there more women?
Definitely.
Is it mostly women?
It's mostly women. But we have some really good, strong males that are in the space with us.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned democracy. How do you define democracy?
Girl. Oh my God, I came back from my thing. This is a hard question right now, right? In this work. Lord.
Right, take it. Cleansing breath.
Let's just take a breath.
What is democracy?
You know, democracy, I think I'm getting blocked because of what we're experiencing right now. Democracy for me is where those people, like the people, are being heard, and those elected officials that we're engaging with are governing alongside with and for the benefit of like making folks better for folks instead of harder. Hearing from them is where democracy is for me right now. And I don't know, this is not a polished answer, Erica. It is a very fragile, very, very fragile thing that we as a people, if we don't get it together, you know, we're seeing it lost. We are seeing it lost. And so
then my question is, do you think we currently have a democracy?
I don't. I really don't right now. I don't. I think that it sounds awful to say that out loud. Like, oof, that sounds really raw. I do not believe that we are in democracy right now. There's a lot of good-hearted folks that are trying, and I see that they're trying. But the realities is that there's a lot of work to do, and it is a broken system right now. We are teetering in a very dangerous line, and I think we're closer to already crossed the line, over the line. And the level of indifference that happened, not only in the presidential election, on local elections, state elections, all of that is really saddening. And I think there's lots of factors that have to play with that. I'm not here to blame anyone for any way in which they showed up, right? That's not going to help. And that's for me and my own health, not to be blaming people. Oh, you didn't show up, or you did this, or you did that. No, that. Or I could have done better, right? No. I think that it's really dangerous. Like we want to be a democracy. And I think the fact that we're losing it, or we're very close to have lost it, is people all are starting to wake up. Like, oh shit is getting real. Everything under the sun that they cared about is being attacked and is being dismantled. And I think that we better do a good job at keeping a list of all the things that are being dismantled. And how do we put them back together, and who knows how to put them back together? And, you know, things that were dismantled, that we can do evaluations too, but we cannot let the perfection be the all stop, right? Because that perfectionist thing that we need, I think, is partly why we got here also. Oof. That's a rough question to add. Like, I don't know if we're coming to the end, Erica, but like, damn.
Like, oh, we're done now. We're done.
Yeah, no, I'm serious. I think, damn. Now, what do you think? Yeah, like, what do you think about that? because I'm coming out of, like I told you, I was enjoying nature. I'm like a lot. I'm getting caught up on a lot. A lot can happen in 3 weeks. Holy cow! Oh my god.
Are you asking me what if do I think we have a democracy?
Mm-hmm.
I think we have someone's version of democracy. I think that we are, because I ask this question a lot. I ask this question on nearly every episode, and there are some folks who can define it very distinctly, and you have other folks who define it with a much wider breadth. And there doesn't seem to be, like, there's a dictionary definition, but it doesn't seem to fit how people see it. Democracy seems to be something that lives and breathes and grows and changes, and it depends on your view of the world and the lens that you see the world through. And so I think that for some folks, this is exactly what they think it should look like. It looks exactly how it should look. And then they keep pushing towards that. And then we have other folks who think that this is nothing like a democracy, and we want something different. And so I think until we can come up with a unified definition that we can all get behind and say, this is what we all we say that we want to live in a world of democracy, and this is what it means, then we're always going to be on the verge of violating someone's human rights, because we can't seem to agree on how to even function. So in that sense, we have it for somebody, but we don't have it for everyone, which to me is not a democracy if everyone's voice can't be heard and everyone's well-being and welfare, doesn't matter. And when I look at, I'll take the medical industry as an example. I was just talking to a Nevada legislator about this, and I said, it seems to be that when you get down to the brass tacks of it all, you have to have money if you want to live.
Yep.
And what does that mean? That in order for your heart to beat healthy and for you to breathe oxygen, that you have to have money. It's almost like we need to put a quarter in every time we take a breath, because if you don't have any money and something is going on with you and you go to the doctor, you could be denied, or they might see you in the emergency room, but they're not going to put forth all of these different efforts. Why? Because it's going to cost money. Even free hospitals, even public hospitals are only going to be able to do so much. Right. And so if you don't have insurance and you don't have any money to go pick up medication, then you could die. Like you literally could be sentenced to death because you don't have enough money in your bank account. How is that not a violation of our human rights? If you don't have any money in your bank account, you may not have clean water. You may not have a place to live. You may not have the basic necessities to even get to the point of thinking about being able to do anything else in this world. You're never going to be able to, go to school to become a doctor if you don't have something to start with, if you don't have any bootstraps in the first place, because, your feet are too torn up that you can't even put shoes on. I've seen so many people that are homeless that walk around Las Vegas without shoes. Imagine not having shoes in Las Vegas in the summer.
Oh my God, no.
But I've seen it. I've seen it. I've looked out and I've seen their feet, and it's a awful sight to see. And they don't have any shoes. And it's just like, how is that possible and okay? And how do you have folks that come into Las Vegas, and I don't want to just pick on Las Vegas, but it could be New Orleans, or it could be LA, or it could be anywhere where people come in and go on vacation, go to Hawaii, you go on vacation, you're spending money, you're drinking, your margaritas and your pina coladas, and you're doing all the things, and you're going shopping and wearing your jewelries, and stepping over somebody who can't wear shoes because their feet are so blistered. And it's like, we're living in this world at the same time. At the same time, with the exact same time, we're on the same street at the same time, and they can't eat anything. But then it's like, oh, well, that's their fault. They must have did something.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that is so real. I think in downtown Phoenix, the same thing. Lots of folks. Downtown Phoenix is up and coming and getting gentrified and developed and all of the things. And So many apartment buildings coming up and folks can't afford the rent. And yeah, there's a lot of folks that are unhoused and they even, they have nowhere to use the restroom, nowhere to shower, and yet, oh, get them out of
The
the
fact
way.
that we can deny people a
Yeah.
bodily autonomy to use the restroom and it's for customers only. And so, and I get businesses are like, okay, well, we have to have a clean restroom for customers, but also everyone has to use the restroom. Everybody. It's
Everybody.
just a thing. It's like, if you can't go to the bathroom, there's something wrong with you, right? Well, we don't have public restrooms. And if even like parks, they lock those up. They lock up the public bathrooms. So where are people supposed to go? And so then when they go outside and they go in alleys or they go in parking garages and parking lots, and it's like, oh my God, that's so gross. What are you supposed to do?
Exactly. So, and where's the dignity for those people? Like, you think that they want to be out there in front of everybody doing their business? No.
People used to ask all the time why I chose to live in downtown Las Vegas. And I will say I felt more community in Huntridge, Jaunes Park, and downtown areas than I felt in any other part of Las Vegas that I ever lived in. But also, it keeps me not too far away from the reality, right? Because if you move all the way out somewhere and you don't see that and it's not there, you think maybe it doesn't exist, but it does. And honestly, those folks, none of them ever bothered me in any way, in the sense of I never felt unsafe. I never was afraid. They weren't the ones to be afraid of. But, I would be driving down the street and you pass someone and you see them yelling at themselves or shadow boxing the air and just fighting demons that we can't see. And they may be high on different drugs or under some sort of influence or suffering from some mental breakdown or what have you. But also, I think at some point, this person was born. Like, they were literally born, maybe in a hospital, maybe at home, somewhere. They were born and somebody loved them. Someone wrapped a blanket around them. Someone fed them. Someone did something for them for however long. And now this is where they are. And it's so hard to think about. And for me, that's how I think about faith is how can I do something at some point at all times for someone else, because that's somebody. They might not even know where this person is. They could be lost to their family, or they could have alienated themselves from their family. So many different things could happen. And so, although, like I said, I don't subscribe to a particular religion, I do subscribe to not being a jerk. I subscribe to, like, how do I feel like I can do something at any given moment to just be helpful? And so I try to as often as possible, whether it's, taking them something to eat. We feed people all the time around the office. And when I go out and feed somebody, I ask them their name. I tell them my name. I ask how they're doing. I'm also one that might give you a bottle of wine or a couple of beers because that makes them happy too. But everybody deserves to have that too, I think.
You're exactly right, Erica. I think, I do live downtown in Phoenix, and it's the same thing. The park is there and it's so much cooler because of the grass, because of the trees, because it's not all concrete. And so people trying to escape extreme heat come to the park. And for a while, I would just be carrying extra socks sometimes, extra water, because I need to do something for something. But then what I will say is that people like you, like-minded, et cetera, are over here are trying to open up cooling centers. Some of our partners open up cooling centers to make sure that people are not just passing away because of extreme heat. And folks that are advocating for the unhoused and unsheltered, you can just maybe try it. And other people, maybe it makes people uncomfortable. Is just say hello to people sometimes. Smile every once in a while, and it makes a big difference. And I think what I've noticed is that, especially with the unhoused, is that folks feel so either they don't know what to do, or someone has told them it's not safe, or they have their own biases, who knows? But they won't even acknowledge them. They just want to look away.
Everybody wants to look away from the bad stuff, but it doesn't make it go away.
It doesn't. And so I think that's where policy, organizing, relationship, networks, whatever, however you want to call it, this is what we need to do, and we got to continue to do it. And it was done before it was fully resourced, and it will be done resourced or not. And I hope that it's still resourced so that people can do work and actually survive as well, because things are hard. People are always trying to put their pennies together, their nickels together, whatever. And I see that's definitely a concern, right? Lots of folks are really concerned. We can see it all over. And from the grocery store to the cost of daycare to the cost of transportation, etc.
Do
So,
you think it's going to get worse before it gets better?
oh yeah, I do. I really do. And I maybe I'm, I'm guilty too, right? I try to do my best. Like I said, I'm imperfect. I do think it's going to get worse because people, they can't be in doom and gloom all day. People do need to look away at some point, sometimes, for their own self-preservation. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that, but I do think it's going to get worse because until more people are feeling the injustices, the inhumanities that are happening on a personal level, unfortunately, it's going to continue because it's the othering, right? The othering and the indifference and the separation is what is making this continue to happen. Because it's not happening to me. It's not going to happen to me. That's why a lot of people are shocked. Like, oh, what? Especially when you see the Republican town halls and people are real mad and the Trump voters are real mad. They're like, oh, I didn't know that was going to happen to me. I didn't know you were talking about my veterans, my teachers, my kids with disabilities. And so now they're concerned, which, yes, we need people to be concerned, but it's not happening to enough people. But we're going to see. And it's happening in ways that people aren't noticing, and trying to bring it a little back is like, even I was out here in respite doing my reflection, right? And so we went to national parks, right? Because that's in very much like it's in nature. So something that I like to do is I like to get the little passport stamp for my national parks and state parks. I know it sounds so simple.
I know you love that though.
I do. And so here I am with my little my state parks and national park passport. I was like, hey, can we stop at the ranger station? I want to get my stamp. Shit, I forgot. Those fools got laid off. I forgot. And the reason why I say that is because there's signs on the door. It was closed. Ranger station is closed down. It's open Tuesday and Wednesday from 9 to 3. And that was it. And so that's like extreme difference what we're talking about right now. But the reason I share that is because a lot of people like to go out and enjoy the parks. And a lot of people like to go to the parks and have a clean restroom and have a clean, healthy, safe place and feel comfortable and safe that if they go hiking and they fall, there's some kind-hearted ranger and their crew going to come help and save them. And those folks are not there, or they are there at very low capacity, at underserved time. And that is really sad.
People want to go and take their children to the parks because it's summer vacation, and they're going to realize that a lot of the things that they may want to do, they're not going to be able to do because there's no one there staffing them.
Yes. And so the reason I brought that up is because the people that are like, oh, it's not happening to me, it's not touching me. That is one place where they didn't think it was going to touch them. They didn't think it was going to mind them. And here it is. And so I think it's going to be really large and in charge and in your face for many of us. In some others, it's going to come more subtle, and it's going to come more in the shocks. And it's going to be, oh shit, they didn't realize that their medication is going to go up, and the support that they get and the different safety net programs that they were depending on are just being ripped away. And I don't know what enough is, right? Like, I don't know why we have to see everybody, being harmed to get in. And so to your question earlier, like, how do you get in if you also feel at risk? It's like having these conversations, getting in a relationship with an organization where that they feel called to and they feel like they can be seen and heard. And if the organizations aren't the space, like especially because I know most of it, we work with a lot of not only women, but largely our networks and folks are women. Women are some of the badass organizers in the world, from organizing food trains after somebody had a baby, or if they needed support, to birthday parties, to family gatherings. Yes.
People can do their own neighborhood organizing, and that's really where it
Yes.
starts, right? Just organize the folks on your block, your 2
Exactly.
blocks, couple blocks here. Just get together and have a conversation like, what's going on right here and right now? And then let's figure out what we can do about it. And whatever you can do about it is better than everyone sitting and complaining separately. Because also the problem is, and this is something we've talked about a lot with Make It Work, particularly in how we talk about the art of storytelling and having these conversations, is we suffer in silence. Like, we don't want to be embarrassed and say, oh, I can't afford I can't afford daycare, or the husband lost their job, or, we don't have enough food in the house, or what have you. And 5 other people on your block could all have that same thing happening to them, but you're all suffering separately instead of talking about it together and not being embarrassed, because the folks who can might be able to help, and the folks who don't even have a lot. You put that stuff together and we can create some meals, create a space where I'll watch your kid for a while. If you can do this, like, you swap stuff out, because that's what community is. And so there's all different types of ways to movement build. It's not just about rabble rousing at the Capitol. Everybody doesn't have to do that. But the art of resistance is collectively working together and not feeding into the hate and the othering of others.
Yes. And the way that folks come together for mutual aid is where we are also having moments of opportunities to be getting involved, organizing. I'll say this, with talking to your neighbors, talking to your blocks, some of them are in our network of folks we have in Massachusetts. We have MCAN. Some of the ways you can start those conversations they've shared out is like talking to folks like, what keeps you up at night, right? Like, what keeps you up at night is one way. And then like switching it, which is a little harder, is like, what actually gets you up in the morning? What gets you up in the morning? What makes you want to keep going? And I think those 2 questions are really important when we're talking to folks about what's happening, what can they do, what do they want to do, and why they do it.
I ask that all the time to my team. That's really, it's a very important question. What gets you up? What gets you up? What keeps you here? Why are you here? I ask them all the time, why are you here? Because if you can remember the why of why you're here, then the sucky days won't feel so sucky.
Yes.
Before we go, because we'll need to wrap up, even though I do really enjoy talking to you, I got to ask you, Alicia, what is your version of the American dream?
Oh, shit. I thought you were going to ask me some juicy cheesemate type of thing.
Look, we can have cheesemate too. We could have some cheesemate, but that's going to be, that's for sticky notes after dark.
After dark. Ooh, American dream.
Yeah.
I think it might be because of the blocking right now, but I'm gonna try to lean into what is my hope, right? What is my hope for the American dream? I really do hope that we could be as close to a utopia or a beloved community on earth. And we have to dream it in order for it to come. And what does that mean, right? We have so many different diversity of ethnicities, of language, of culture, of talents, of gifts, of offerings, of people in the US, that when we could just get it together, I don't know, we just need to let's just wake up to actually just see each other and offerings and receive those offerings in a way. I think, the American dream could really be one where folks can live abundantly and with dignity, and in a democracy that's working for all of those, right? Where we are not othering one another, when we're not turning away in indifference. And so I want to see that for myself, right? I don't have any kids yet. We haven't birthed a child, then maybe we'll adopt a child. Who knows? Only God knows, right? I would love to be able to do that in a space where that kiddo had a chance, right? Like, had a real chance. That if we birthed a child, that I wouldn't be deadly afraid that if I chose to do that in a hospital, what is my risk of like walking out with that kiddo, right? Healthy, unharmed, right? That I have the care that I need. and the time that I need to be in bond. And my husband and my partner had the same, that we would be able to own a house and actually live long enough to own it. Lord. And I'm not talking
You mean
about
like actually own it, not just owe a mortgage for
a mortgage. No, like
30
actually
plus
own
years.
it, because, I didn't buy a house earlier. And so what does that look like at 500 plus the interest? I don't know. I'm like, is that actually home ownership a real thing? Whether we birth or adopt, if we have a kiddo or when we have a kiddo, because it will happen, right? That they can speak English and Spanish and not be harassed in school. That they can choose to practice the faith or not, and respect others and be kind. Be kind, they don't have to be perfect, but be good, kind human beings. And that they're in an environment where when they go to school, I won't have to worry if they get a racist teacher that just don't like them because their dad speaks with an accent and they may or not, have Spanish as their first language. Yeah, I think that it's a space where we can actually want to raise a kid and have our family chosen or blood be safe, be fed, not have to work in 115-degree heat, where my dad is retired and actually retired and not working until he falls asleep in the chair, passed out, exhausted. And my mom has time to be with my dad, and that the stressors on the economy do not keep my parents up at night, but allow them to be with one another in their elder years, where I don't have to fear if we go to visit my husband's family, like we have the ability to visit, but like not be talking about, do we have a burner phone, or are we going to be okay if we come back in? So taking away all of those things was what American Dream would feel like, because it is so heavy right now, Erica. It is so heavy. Safety, health, the ability to just be. I don't want to, I don't want any person to have to be like the good immigrant or the good Black person or like the productive one. If we want to be lazy, let us be lazy too. Let us be tired. Let us
have feelings.
Yes. Can we please start bringing out the softness in us instead of like the survival all the time? Ooh, I don't know. I need a minute.
Alicia, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate you. I appreciate your dedication to this work. I appreciate your dedication to your community, our collective mission and goals that we have. To be free to live, free to rest, and free to raise our babies and our doggies, in safe environments. Like, that's what reproductive justice is. That's what economic justice is. That's what environmental justice is to have the resources that we need in order to live our version of the American dream. And that's what we fight for every day. And that's also what we're resting for too. So I'm grateful and thankful to be in this work with you and to have had the opportunity to work very closely with you over the years in some really productive spaces and some not so productive spaces, but, still sticking it out no matter what. And I think you are one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast, because there's folks like you that may not know who you are, may not know your name, because outside of our bubbles, who knows who any of us are, but the amount of work that you have done that has benefited someone who's listening to this podcast and they don't even know it, I think it's worth them hearing your voice and knowing that you do exist and that your heart is here to help all of us exist in a better place. And so I thank you. And I know others would thank you if they knew just how much you have done. And so without them knowing all of the things you've done, the collective thank you should still be there, because the invisible hands are the ones doing the work. And that is the hands and feet of the higher power, in which someone believes that it is our job to do the work not just sing about it, not just, look down on others in judgment, but to do the hard work so that we can live together in perfect harmony. All those things. Right.
Thank you,
Kumbaya
Erica.
and all the things. But
Yes,
thank you
can we
so
please
much.
get to the community? Yes, thank you, Erica, for having me and for what you do. I love you, and the work that you do, it really opens up the possibilities for others in different spaces to dream also and to believe, And so thank you, because I don't know if you get all the thank yous and the flowers that you deserve.
Probably not, but I'm doing it anyway. So, all right. But until the next episode, y'all, this is Sticky Note Conversations with Erica Washington. I thank you for listening. I thank you for joining in. And I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Please reach out. Tell us what you think. Find us on social media. Find Make It Work on social media. Feel free to send us an email at stickynotes@makeitworknevada.org. And until next time, y'all, bye.
Thanks for listening to Sticky Note Conversations with Erica Washington. Hosted and executively produced by Erica Washington. With editing by Black Gypsy LLC and Simone Endres. Special thanks to KUNV 91.5 in Las Vegas. This show is powered by Make It Work Nevada, a project of Tides Advocacy. And a special thank you to Grove GT Teague and Eno Savad, who made our new theme song, Way Below Acceptable.